All right, welcome back to Hope for Healing Men. And I'm here with Duwayne Langham, the founder and creator of the Modern Man Rite of Passage. Thank you so much for joining me, Duwayne.
Thank you for having me, man.
So you're like a lion of men. I look at you, you got the lion mane, you have courage, you have strength, you have power. Let's let's
Wow.
just let's just talk about what it is to be a man.
Hmm. Wow. That's that's really it's really poignant that that's the question that you lead with. That's actually the basis behind my program, the Modern Man's Rite of Passage. It's really and one layer separate is looking at what it is to be a grounded masculine man, mature grounded masculine man. But that really is the question, right? Who am I or you or anybody else to say what it is to be a man? And with no direction at the same time, everything out there showing you, giving you examples, role models, if you don't have it in place, distinguish for yourself what it is to be a man. So, I mean, where I stand to the question to directly answer, saying a lot of stuff there, where I stand on it, man right now, mature, grounded, masculine man just means being leadership, willing to step into leadership for humanity. I mean, to be honest, at some level or another, the future in raising your children, being a partner to your partner, being a family man, mom, dad, uncles, all that. And at the larger level, the bigger scale, politics, law of the land, business, economy, uh, being willing to lead. That's what I see being a man is through my filtered eyes of mature masculine energy. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question. I'm having so much fun already. We're not even 2 minutes in. I'm having fun. So you talk about this leadership thing, and before we went live, we were actually talking about just being authentic. Like I'm having a lot of growth in my life, but I'm coming against resistance. But
Mhm.
there's this idea that being a man is being able to come against resistance, and I'm almost hearing this connection with leadership. What part of leadership bridges into the level of perseverance and the responsibility for our stand in the world? And how do
Mm.
we get there?
Well, all of it, all of it points to leadership because you can't have any of those facets without leadership. The second part is what's most important. How do you get there? That's what you got to get about leadership. There's a vision that leadership is, perfect, has all the answers, right? And it's so much deeper than that. You brought up lions, right? You think about the lion's pride. There's no instruction manual. There's no like, this is how you run the pride kind of thing, but you can tell clearly who the leader is, the main, everything you were talking to. So same thing with humans, we get so much more complex, but showing up as a leader is just being the person there, like the one willing to stand, like you said, stand for something. And to tie in, my belief is you are your mature masculine expression. Who am I out in the world? So whatever your stand is individually, you choosing to lead it, stand for it, share it with others, be the example of it, be the change you want to see in the world, as it said. I think that that's what leadership really is. And to the part of the question, sticking through it, taking responsibility. That's all the hard work. That's all the through the trenches. That's why nobody actually wants to be a leader. Like you get credit when you do a good job and you take the brunt of the work it takes to get there. And should you be ineffective, all of the heat from the direction and being response able, even when you, I don't know the language barrier here, even when you F it up, being willing to be response able to turn it back around and just keep going. That's leadership. That's my experience, understanding, and distinction of leadership.
Hmm. Thank you for bringing that into the space. So now we have like a level, flat playing field of what leadership is. What obviously it's being responsible for what's missing when things go wrong. It's being responsible for
Absolutely.
the work to get it to go right, and then it's having it actually go right. Like the highest level of responsibility is like having it go the way that works for the stand that we're living into. Question on thwarted leadership. What do you think are some of the primary things men are dealing with that are coming against uh, the leadership of men in this present day and age?
What are they coming against meaning their challenges or what's missing out there?
Maybe a little bit of both, but also what's impacting the leadership. What's preventing men from taking charge of their lives?
That is a very, I'm a call me a thief. I got away with words, right? I pay attention to communication so precisely. You spoke to what's preventing. So it's a case where I would say the biggest thing that men today have to get is that they are the prisoner, locked and tied up, restricted, held back. And at the same time, they're also the warden, the one with the key at all times. There's nothing preventing men from fulfilling on their manhood, right? There are challenges, which at the very core of what I work in, masculinity, which one could say is the fuel for manhood, right? The accepted social expression for manhood, masculinity, masculine energy to go forward, to assert, initiate. If men can take responsibility to look for themselves, this work exists. It is out there. I think as a whole, and I take responsibility to be a stand for the very conversation myself, is that we have to put it forward. We have to start somewhere. We have to lead. Nobody wants to do that. I assert has been the missing to this point. Through my research, through my own work, I've found other organizations, initiatives, and it took something to find that. It wasn't the household name, just a known practice at the tribe level, right? That everyone knows, 10 or 11, it's about time. It's time to become a man, time to learn the ways of the world of men, manhood, that whole thing. That conversation's a complete missing. So when you speak to challenges, not anything preventing, having that basis on the individual, having the understanding that I've got to figure this thing out. There is no right way. No one's shown me how to do it, unless you were so blessed to have that. But again, speaking of the larger macro versus the micro, statistically, you don't have that. At least my generation, only child, raised by a single mother, no father in the household. So to that regard, those are a bunch of a laundry list, if you were paying attention, of the things preventing, I say challenging men from reaching their fullest potential in manhood.
So I got what's challenging men is there's not really a structure out there for you. You actually had to go seek it, and it was something in you that was driven towards finding something that was actually off the beaten path. It wasn't just there in front of you, but it came out of your commitment to looking for answers. And what's really missing in this whole space and this whole conversation is we don't have the access, and I guess for lack of the other word, this conversation has not penetrated deep enough into society to really reach every single man. And we're falling short on character development. Like in your situation, you didn't even have a father in your household. You were raised by your mom. And then in some situations, people have a father and maybe the father's emotionally absent or he works too much or whatever the situation. But there's really a poor level of fatherhood in the rearing of children, and the impact of not having the right masculine role model, the right, as your program states it, the right rite of passage for a boy to turn into a man. We're not developing character and transitioning men from boy to man. And what is the characteristics? And actually, I'm going to turn it into a question. What are the characteristics of a boy versus a man?
That's an easy one, right? So the man thinks beyond self. The boy is not grounded in self yet, so self is the only concern. And to be honest, there's a shift. So as always, I'm going to end up bringing it back to my work, divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy. Women flowing in their feminine energy, and children, boys and girls by default, are going to be flowing in feminine energy. So the distinct difference, the separation when the boy would turn into a man to take on the concepts of the village, the tribe, the larger good, the thing that he provides, protects, and cherishes, his partner, his mate, his children, his village, his tent, that context. And that's from a primitive speaking. In today's day and age, It's much larger than that, and that's why I say to masculinity over manhood, because there's a lot of depth behind manhood. Considering someone a boy or a man, right? And there are plenty of ways where a man may not be matured or developed, but can take on, base needs. May show up as a perfect father, willing to do whatever it takes to take care of the children. May show up as a great partner. Not that they are not men. And that's why I say the depth of a conversation on or off. Are you a man or not? Are you grounded in your manhood? Okay. When you look at the energetic, the masculinity, grounded in mature masculine energy, it takes it to that much more diverse realm of depth. Does that speak to your question first? And then, if
It does, and I think there's another layer of this being a man thing, which part of it's baked into expectations. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the unhealthy expectations that are put on men that are actually keeping men in like a space of obligation? Does that land that question?
yeah, the one biggest thing is having to have it all together. So, and summed up, you may have heard as, people diagnose it toxic masculinity. And that's not, that's one way to see it. Shadow masculine, toxic masculine, out of balance masculine. In my world, I like to call it immature. It's just a level of maturity. But that element that says you have to have everything together, you have to have it all, you have to have the confidence, you have to have the stoicism. So masculine energy, who am I, takes on the challenge. That's why it has to have courage, because it takes on risk. Does not mean that it has to have it all prepared. Again, similar to leadership. Doesn't mean being perfect, doesn't mean being right, doesn't mean having all the answers. It's being willing to do it, having the courage to do it. And how do you develop yourself in a society where there's no conversation or no safe space for it to just be? To one, even have fellowship, to be with other men in healthy, after you leave the tribe in modern society, you're not going to stay with your parents all your life. You're not going to stay in the same town you were born in all your life, on average. So from that, understanding that, how do you have fellowship with men into adulthood? How do you then also develop being a man, being masculine, or whatever the case may be, if you're supposed to already have it together? James Bond syndrome. You never see him practice. You never see him work on anything, but he's just got everything, all the skills, all the charisma, everything needed at all times. So if that's what you've got to measure up against, nobody else is talking about it. Everybody's putting on their mask, their best front, their machismo, their bravado until they fuck up, get caught, whatever the case may be. But inside of that, how do you healthily develop? What do you measure it against? There's no model for it whatsoever. There is no rite of passage. For me, that is the biggest challenge.
So it's just, I really hear accepting ourselves. Like there's really no right way to have it. And even inside of a mistake or something not working out, there's something always to be gained, man or woman. There's something to be learned to adjust in our character to be better.
Exactly.
Wow.
All inside of that falsehood. How you do anything is how you do everything. We're going to talk on one thing, manhood and masculinity, and it's going to apply to so many things out there.
Yeah. Well, I got a big question for you now.
Heavy hitters.
Well, I want to ask you about you. What was your biggest challenge in discovering your masculinity and maturing in it?
Oh, that's funny. My biggest challenge. Everything of it is a challenge. So to this very day, that is still at the core, that I have to exercise a muscle to have fellowship without competition, healthy fellowship with men in my adult life. And literally this year actually took it on and created we have in the tribe as, a distinction, man pack. But in the adulthood, in the last month or so, actually establishing a man pack, a group of adult men that I admire, I respect, iron sharpens iron, a collective. And it's just not that common. And I'm a creator of a program and spaces for, so to speak, to the rarity to it. That's my experience. That's my biggest challenge. And what I've learned from it, the tie to it, is a matter of leadership. And it's the same context. I can look around in my world and see what's not there. There's no fellowship. There's no male friends. There's nobody on the same level as me. There's nobody thinking the same way, doing this, doing that, whatever I'd be looking for. And I had to create it. There's no space to get these answers on being a man, and I had to create it. I had to go find it, seek it, search for it. So be the change that you want to see in the world. Go ahead. What you hear?
I keep hearing responsibility at the center tenet of leadership, that you took responsibility for your life, and inside of that it showed up. There wasn't like a magic formula or recipe to have it happen. You just took responsibility and it showed up inside of your clearing.
Yes. And you know, to that, because leadership applies to so much, and I got through my own training and development how powerful it is out there in the world. Half of the power in leadership is letting go of what you think leadership is. Because leadership, what I thought, I'll speak from the I, what leadership occurred to for me before I trained and developed myself in leadership was something impossible, something not human. The James Bond, like, I'm never going to be ready to be a leader. And this is me with a strong personality, good character. I always had my stuff together, but having the belief that I'm just ready to go lead, no. What I got access to is when I trained and developed myself in leadership, having that you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to always get it right. You're not going to have every answer. You can make mistakes. Having just that generosity for myself is what gives me access to my leadership. Now I can step up, step forward. Yeah, sure, I can do that. And with my clients and business, where friendships, family, where I can show up and be a leader without question. I don't have to. I don't have a need to lead everywhere I go, and I'm comfortable and used to it. And I feel the strongest factor, and this is what I'm speaking to everyone out there, giving yourself the grace to just love you, to just trust you, everything about yourself. That's the whole masculine expression. Who am I? The more you love self, the more you let that be expressed, your leadership will shine through. The leadership is the calling to what you see missing in the world, in every aspect. How you see society, friendship, business, money, any interaction that you go through, and whatever you see as a missing, what you don't like, you can complain about it, you can wither away and shrink up from it, or like you said, take responsibility and create your version of the world. There are 7 or 8 billion versions of the world out there to be created, and when we get grounded in ourselves and love ourselves, that's when we start thriving instead of surviving and putting forth, you know, what humanity's supposed to be up to, instead of all this collecting things and looking good. And anyway, another conversation, degenerative society. Shout out to Elliot Hoff. People in that conversation know what I'm talking about. Did that answer your question?
That does, and actually I heard something else. I keep hearing stuff in your speaking. That's how I know it's a clear speaking, is I heard forgiveness very loud and clear. And inside of your grace and self-love, you're just quick to not make it significant. You're quick to allow yourself the grace to be exactly as you are. And I get, you didn't say it, but I can inference that because you give yourself that space, it shows up that way for others, and people, probably especially the women in your life, experience love by you because of that.
Absolutely. That's the, that's what I love about the work and commits me to it. You know, mature masculine expression, leadership, manhood, when it shows up in life, it's a beautiful fucking thing. Pardon my language. I don't know what the audience is here, but I just got to flow with that. There's so much significance, right? That our partners, our women, our friends, our family, our clientele, our business life, children build their life around a leader, a man, masculine expressions word. When I create what I'm going to do, who I'm going to be, what is the quality of life, when I take ownership, responsibility, everything that we're talking about for my world, so many others get to thrive off of that. So many others get to build their world off of that. So that's what's possible. And I may need to take a time out to take a call. I don't know how that works.
Well, we just finished up the interview, so I had more questions. Actually, this was awesome. So if you want, you're welcome to go and take that call. Thank you, Duwayne, for being here. That was awesome.
Thank you. Looking forward to coming back, man.
Yeah, we'll do more, man. There's a lot more juice to squeeze.
Yeah, part 2. Later.
Part 2. Bye, Duwayne. Thank you.